Zhang Yi could feel Bien Junwu's sharp eyes through his frog-shaped sunglasses as he continued. This war seems to be very difficult for us to win. But in my opinion, it was too smooth. All the actions were as if the zombie tide was deliberately cooperating with us. Don't you feel strange? Bien Junwu was silent for a long time before asking, "What is the basis for saying this? I want evidence." Zhang Yi took a deep breath, thought about it, and shook his head helplessly as he sighed heavily. "I don't have any conclusive evidence yet, but these doubts are real." Bien Junwu pushed up his dark toad-shaped sunglasses and raised the corner of his mouth, not mocking, but encouraging. "You are very cautious, which is a good attitude. Being cautious may make life very tiring, but it will definitely not make it easier for you to die. But you don't have to worry. No matter how serious the problem in Tianhai City is, it is just a minor incident for the Jiangnan region." He stretched out his thin and slender hand and turned it over. "No matter how big the trouble is, we can suppress it if we say so." Zhang Yi smiled and did not ask Bien Junwu for anything else. After all, from the beginning to the end of the battle, this was just his guess without any real evidence. He did not expect to convince Bien Junwu. But as long as he planted the seeds of doubt in Bien Junwu's mind, he believes that with Bien Junwu's mind, he would notice something was wrong. "I understand. If I find out anything, I will tell you as soon as possible. You won't ignore it at that time, right?" Zhang Yi said this in a joking manner, but inwardly he didn't consider it as a joke. If everything he imagined comes true, then what they would face in the end is an enemy that is countless times more terrifying than the zombie tide. Bien Junwu, at this moment, again, pushed his frog-shaped sunglasses and said, "In all areas under the jurisdiction of Jiangnan District, if something with a high enough threat level occurs, we will take action. Of course, if you are still worried, you might as well go back with us. There is no safer place than Blizzard City." Zhang Yi smiled and casually brushed off what Bien Junwu just said. "Let's talk about it later. I'm going to take my team back first." Then the two continued, making small talks as they made their way back. Zhang Yi had already said his goodbyes to anyone he needed to, so he and Bien Junwu head straight to where his car and team were, ready and waiting to depart from the camp. Zhang Yi was about to get into his car when someone shouted from behind for him to wait. So, as he turned to the source of the voice, it was none other than Li Jian. Zhang Yi questioned what he was doing here. Li Jian walked up to Zhang Yi, took his right hand and said something incoherently, then suddenly turned and walked away. The entire experience was weird and bizarre. Bien Junwu was curious, so he asked Zhang Yi what the entire experience which just took place was all about. With his right hand leisurely in his pocket, Zhang Yi replied that Li Jian's son just had an accident yesterday, so he went to look for him, but probably didn't find him. Bien Junwu walked up to Zhang Yi and gently tapped him on the shoulder. "Good luck," he said. Then, Zhang Yi got in his car and left the camp of the snow worship sect. Bien Junwu, once again, waved goodbye as the car disappeared out of sight. "Looks like I'll have to stay a little longer." Bien Junwu said this as he, once again, pushed up his dark toad-shaped sunglasses. It seems that Bien Junwu had considered Zhang Yi's speculations and decided to briefly look into it before he leaves. Zhang Yi, on the other hand, took a deep look at the camp through the rearview mirror with mixed feelings, silently hoping not to ever come back there. He took out a piece of white cloth from his pocket, and on it were densely written words. Although small, was clearly legible to read. Zhang Yi carefully read the contents of the white cloth. It was a letter, written in ink. The content of the letter is as follows. 28 days ago, my family of 3 and our neighbors were led by the Grand Cleric Shao Jinhua of the Snow Worship Sect. Yuan Kongya knew my ability, and she took me to the abandoned building next to the church. There, I saw a huge plant which they called Bloodvine. Yuan Kongya told me that my responsibility was to use my ability to cultivate it. My ability can accelerate the growth of plants, and the vitality of the plants cultivated by me is stronger. But gradually, I found that something was wrong with it. No, it was the whole sect that was wrong. First, after taking the red fruit produced by the Bloodvine, people's spirits will appear trance and excitement, similar to hallucinations. And each time the red fruit is distributed in the church, you have to listen to Yuan Kongya's teachings while eating the fruit. I suspect this is a hypnotic method to make believers loyal to her. Many cult organizations have always used drugs to induce hallucinations. I paid attention to it in my mind, and later discussed with my wife and children not to eat this kind of food. Fortunately, as a priest, I can also receive other supplies, so there was no problem without eating it. Although Zhang Yixin noticed this, they needed me, so they didn't ask me about it. They just reminded me once indirectly. Second, the bloodvine itself is not a rhizome that can produce food. The people of the Snow Worship Sect dumps corpses into the abandoned building where bloodvine is, and the bloodvine would wrap the corpse to form a cocoon and absorb the nutrients. But I later found out that some cocoons are very special. They are larger than ordinary cocoons, and they will not gradually dry up, but will continue to expand. It feels as if the energy of other cocoons has been absorbed to breed them. I once suspected that some strange creatures were bred in it, but when I went there again later, I couldn't see it anymore. I have a suspicion that those corpses are the source of the zombie virus. But this speculation has no basis. It is just my imagination. But if we can study the blood vine carefully, we should be able to know the truth of the matter. Third, Yuan Kongye is a lunatic. If the people who join the snow worship sect are underage boys, they will be subjected to a purification ceremony by her. In fact, it is to castrate them. I have never understood the meaning of this ceremony. Since we came here, I have also been worried that my son will be treated like this. Although we have always been very careful, we still couldn't escape the bad luck in the end. She is a terrible lunatic. Fourth, I once accidentally saw Yuan Kongye kill a female priest with her own hands. The female priest and I had a good relationship. She has always been cautious and has never done anything to anger Yuan Kongye. But that day, I saw her being strangled to death by Yuan Kongye by the neck. I don't know if these things are useful to you. My son is dead. I am very sad. As a father, I don't have the ability to avenge him. But if one day the opportunity is right, I hope this information will be helpful to you. Zhang Yi tightly fisted the white cloth in his hand with a serious expression. And although he and Li Jian weren't close in any way, Zhang Yi felt Li Jian's pain in his letter. However, at this moment, Zhou Qier asked curiously when she saw what Zhang Yi was holding. "Hey, what is that?" Zhang Yi put the white cloth away and smiled faintly. "Nothing. It's just my changed underwear." Hearing this, Zhou Qier quickly turned her head away. An evident blush crept on her cheeks. And in the back seat of the car was Chunlei, who started laughing when he heard Zhang Yi's answer. Flower and Liang Yu, however, didn't pay any attention to Zhang Yi's answer. Zhang Yi had a faint smile on his face when he thought about the letter he just read. The snow worship sect seems to be even worse than I expected, he thought. Meanwhile, back at the shelter, everything inside was the same as usual, with no significant changes. But on the shelter's compound, a couple of zombies occasionally passed by, aimlessly. After losing the command of the Corpse King, they wandered aimlessly on the snowy field. Some of them had been frozen and were probably completely dead. Even though those cold-resistant viruses could not survive in an environment of -60 degrees for a long time. Coupled with the loss of food, death was inevitable. But at this moment, inside the dining area, Yang Min was preparing a welcoming feast for Zhang Yi and the others' safe return from the battle. By the window was her sister Yang Xinxin. Yang Xinxin, feeling a bit dejected, sighed heavily. She was impatiently waiting for Zhang Yi and the others to return. The reason for her current mood was that she, like Lu Karen, felt that they needed to fight the zombies alongside their brother and the others. But with her condition, she was rational about it and knew it was impossible. Xinxin, brother Zhang, and the others will be back soon. Don't just sit by the window and watch, her sister said. But at the same time outside, the vehicles also arrived at the shelter's compound. Seeing this, Yang Xinxin said excitedly, "They are back!" Yang Xinxin and the rest knew that Zhang Yi and everyone else had just experienced a dangerous battle. So as soon as they entered through the door, these girls and women welcomed them excitedly. "Big brother, are you okay? Xinxin was so worried about you," she said. Lu Karen also looked apologetic. "Big brother, you are out there taking risks, but we can only stay at home. We can't help at all. I'm really sorry." Zhang Yi smiled, stroked the heads of the two girls, and said to them that there was no danger, so they needn't need to worry. "Aren't we all fine? Everyone has different abilities and everyone is doing their job. There is no need to blame yourself too much." Yang Min had prepared a sumptuous meal with Zhou Haimei to welcome everyone. It was time for dinner, and there's still time to talk at the table. Soon, the whole family gathered around the big round table at the dining area, celebrating in full delight. They ate happily together. Zhang Yi smiled at Yang Min and asked whether anything happened around the shelter while they were away. Yang Min shook her head. "No, it was actually scary quiet. Nothing happened." Zhang Yi nodded and felt relieved. Everyone talked about what happened in the camp of the snow worship sect. Hearing the story of hundreds of thousands of zombies besieging the camp, everyone still felt scared. Lu Karen's face was a little sad. She asked Zhang Yi, "Were you guys okay outside? What was it like?" Zhang Yi replied, "We were lucky and never encountered any danger or losses, but other teams, I can't be certain of how many. In many teams, less than 1% of the people survived. I don't know how many people are still alive in Tianhai City now. Maybe we are part of the last survivors. And although those who are alive may not be friendly to us now, but when there are only a few people left in a city, a feeling of loneliness begins to permeate everyone's hearts. However, this sad feeling was soon replaced by the sound of cheers. At this moment, Chunlei raised his glass and said to everyone, "Don't be so sad, our people are still alive, which is the best result. Come on, everyone, cheers, to celebrate our staged victory. Cheers! At least now they are still living happily." Zhang Yi did not forget to ask Yang Min whether she continued to make supernatural food during his absence. He was very relieved about the storage possibility of these kinds of strategic materials which could save a person's life in the moment of need. He would rather the supernatural food piled up in his alternate space and not be eaten, and he also did not want to have a shortage at a critical time. Yang Min smiled and said, "I make it every day. After all, you guys were fighting on the front line, and we couldn't be idle in the rear. By the way, I put all the food in the refrigerator." Zhang Yi thought for a while and asked, "More than 10 days have passed. Has the effect of the supernatural food weakened?" Yang Min nodded. "According to my observation, if the food is not eaten, the effect will gradually decrease after 7 days. After 10 days, it will completely disappear." Zhang Yi knew this information was important, so he memorized the characteristics of the supernatural food in his mind. This is the characteristic of Yang Min's supernatural power, which may be of great use in the future. After everyone finished their meal, their stomachs were full and some were drunk. And an example was Chunlei, who was so scared that he almost peed his pants during the battle, was now enjoying himself crazily after coming back. He drank 2 bottles of premium red wine by himself. Chunlei rushed to the bathroom to vomit for a long time, and then came back to the room to rest. This is a typical crazy enjoyment after being scared. After all, he almost died, Liang Yu commented. Zhang Yi also drank a lot of wine, but he had a good alcohol tolerance, so he didn't get drunk. After the banquet was nearing its end, Zhang Yi announced to everyone that he was done eating. "Xin, come directly to the control room to find me after you finish eating." Yang Xin nodded in understanding and replied with an okay. In the control room, the bright light illuminated the huge place, and everything inside showed a gorgeous futuristic style, like the control console of a battleship. Even the ceiling and the feet were transparent LED displays. Zhang Yi was being secretive, not because he wants to hide something from the others, but rather wants to figure it out first and then selectively tell everyone. After all, some things are not easy to discuss with many people. Instead, everyone has their own ideas which interferes with personal thinking. Therefore, Zhang Yi likes to discuss problems with Yang Xin the most, because she was very smart and like Zhang Yi, she was an absolutely rational person. Zhang Yi came to the control console and turned it on to receive the information sent by Xiao Honglian. Yang Xin also came in a few minutes after Zhang Yi. When she entered the room, she naturally closed the door behind her. Zhang Yi was delighted to see her. "Xin, you're here. Come here and take a look at something." Yang Xin wheeled her wheelchair to the panel, where Zhang Yi told her to take a look at the information of the leader of the snow worship sect. After Zhang Yi got the information of the leaders and deputies of the 3 major forces. Of course, there was no information about Radiant Prosperity Base. However, among these materials, Zhang Yi really wanted to see the information of only 2 people, Yuan Kongye and Zheng Yixian. As for the others, it was completely a smokescreen to prevent Xiao Honglian from knowing his true purpose. Yang Xin sat next to Zhang Yi and watched him curiously as he opened the document of Yuan Kongye. "Big brother, can you tell me what's going on?" Zhang Yi did not hide his thoughts from Yang Xin. He took a deep breath and told Yang Xin everything he had seen in the camp of the snow worship sect during his time there. At the same time, he also expressed his suspicions. Although there is no evidence at present, I think that the snow worship sect may be related to the Corpse Tide riot in Tianhai City this time. If there is really a huge conspiracy behind this, it will definitely pose a great danger to us. So, I want to investigate this matter clearly. If I can't do it, I will be unable to sleep or eat. Yang Xin's eyes showed a look of surprise. Although she is not a conspiracy theorist, if it is really like what Zhang Yi said, the person who manipulates everything behind the scenes is definitely a top conspirator. Yang Xin did not rush to give her own opinion. After all, as Zhang Yi said, everything is just speculation at present. She checked the information of Yuan Kongye with Zhang Yi. With Yuan Kongye's information displayed on the screen, Xiao Honglian did not lie, and the information she collected was very complete. It was records, in details of Yuan Kongye's personal life, including her family background and growth experience. Zhang Yi and Yang Xin read her information carefully. They fell into silence for a long time, because the story about her was really unbearable to read. The basic summary is as follows. Yuan Kongye, 20 years old, is a mixed race of Chinese and Japanese, born in Nara Prefecture, Japan. His father's name is Yuan Suiyun and his mother's name is Kamiko. Both of them are loyal believers of a sect called Shinri in Japan. When Yuan Kongye was 3 years old, he followed his parents to Tianhai City, China, and lived in number 256, Jinling Street, Changlan District. In the same year, Yuan Suiyun and his wife Kamiko established a branch of Shinri in Tianhai City. At that time, Shinri was listed as a cult organization in China and has been engaged in underground activities. Yuan Suiyun served as the leader of Shinri, and his wife Kamiko served as the high priest. In order to recruit believers, the couple lied that their daughter Yuan Kongye had divine power and designated her as the saint of Shinri. Relying on the instigation of religion, the Suiyun's family soon possessed a huge fortune. Therefore, Yuan Kongye lived a wealthy life since she was a child. In the Shinri church, she was treated like a princess. However, this kind of life ended when Yuan Kongye was 16 years old. Her parents encountered a plane crash when they went to Neon Country to attend a Shinri church rally, and both of them died on the spot. After the death of Yuan Suiyun and his wife Kamiko, the followers of the Shinri church gradually realized that they had been deceived. The young Yuan Kongye was unable to control the situation, and the truth that she had no divine power was exposed. The doctrine of the Shinri church was that believers can obtain the gods by donating property. Then they would be blessed by the gods and can enter the kingdom of God after death. Even those who donate the most assets can choose the country to be reborn in the next life. Therefore, a large number of Shinri believers did not hesitate to go bankrupt and donate to Yuan Suiyun and his wife Kamiko. After the death of Yuan Suiyun and his wife, the angry believers wanted to take back their property. However, most of these properties have been squandered by the Suiyun's family of 3. So, the angry believers vented their resentment on Yuan Kongye, who was only 16 years old. The Tianhai City Police received a call in 2046 and recorded the incident. The nature of the case was extremely bad. When Yuan Kongye was sent to the hospital, she had been tortured beyond recognition and had permanent lacerations in many parts of her body. However, because it involved a cult organization and too many people were involved, the subsequent handling method was more ambiguous. But according to the information, the number of people suspected to be involved in the case was as many as 136. The only person who happens to be alive after the end of the world and knows about this was Xiao Honglian. Since she had worked in the police system before, she knew the case very well and even had the contents of the file. Anyway, since that tragic incident, Yuan Kongye disappeared as if she had evaporated from the earth. When she appeared again, it was after the end of the world, and she suddenly transformed herself and became the leader of the snow worship sect. Relying on the means of bewitching people she learned in the Divine Principle School, she gradually expanded his power and made the snow worship sect one of the largest organizations in Tianhai City. Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin fell into silence after reading Yuan Kongye's personal information. For a long time, the two of them were slowly digesting the information and didn't know how to speak. So it is hard to imagine how miserable Yuan Kongye's experience was. After a long time, Zhang Yi said, "Isn't it strange that such a person can become the savior in the end times?" He looked at Yang Xinxin. "Do you believe it?" Yang Xinxin shook her head and sighed heavily. Her eyes were closed, and she said slowly, "After experiencing this kind of thing, it is impossible to maintain a normal mental state. If it were me, I would only think about destroying the whole world, or make the world what I want." Zhang Yi folded his arms and took another deep breath. "Now, I understand something. In this zombie crisis, everyone, including myself, thought that the snow worship sect suffered the most losses, losing nearly 10,000 believers. But Zhang Yi had changed his mind. He continued that as of now, he doesn't think that's the case. Maybe Yuan Kongye doesn't care about the lives of those people at all. Maybe she is deliberately using the deaths of those people to cover up her conspiracy." Yang Xinxin looked up at Zhang Yi. "Big brother, do you have any evidence to prove this?" Zhang Yi's mouth curled up slightly. There was no evidence before, but now there is. Zhang Yi was not in a hurry. He slowly told Yang Xinxin all the doubts he had. "Remember I said that I suspected Yuan Kongye's ability was death return? At the beginning, I knew that Yuan Kongye had multiple superpowers.